My name is Kim Davenport. As I said before, I'm the product manager for OpenStax Tutor Beta. And this webinar is being led by Chad Young, who's a pioneer faculty at Nicholls State, where he is an associate professor of physics. And Chad has been piloting OpenStax Tutor Beta in his course for the last year. And we thought that this was a good opportunity for him to share some of his best practices and tips for using OpenStax Tutor in your course, helping your students make the most of it, and also helping you get the most out of the tool. So with that, I will pass it over to Chad to start the webinar. And as we are chatting, please feel free to drop your questions into the Q&A section of the GoToWebinar. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So thanks. All right, over to you, Chad.
Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Chad Young. I'm at Nicholls State. It's in South Louisiana, so good afternoon or good morning to you wherever you are. First, a little bit about myself and our university. It's a primarily undergraduate university. We have about 6,500 students. My class that I use OpenStax Tutor in is a Physics 101 class. It's for mainly biology majors. I have a few education majors, but mainly biology, and a lot of them are pre-health sciences, you know, med school, PT school, PA school, you name it. So many of you probably teach similar courses, and this OpenStax Tutor accompanies the college physics textbook. My students are pretty good. On campus, they have about an average of 3.3 GPA, and their average ACT is about a 26. So I think they're the best students on campus, honestly. So then what is OpenStax Tutor Beta? It's a low-cost online courseware, and it's designed to help students learn and to retain information. It's designed actually to do a lot more than that, to help you as faculty to assess your students. And it helps the students as well, but it really helps you to gauge your class and see where it is. And I'll be showing you some of those tools today. Listen, I started using OpenStax textbooks a number of years ago because they were free. And now I use them because they're just really great. Like, I've just learned that these textbooks, these peer-reviewed textbooks that are written by some of your best colleagues in the world, in the field, that they're just high quality textbooks. They have lots of simulations and videos. And with Tutor, you get extra practice for your students. So you know, as physics faculty, that students need lots and lots and lots of practice to master this material. And with Tutor, it provides you a different avenue to provide that practice and a different avenue for you to assess the students. They also get feedback from Tutor, OpenStax Tutor, feedback on why they got an answer wrong, or why this question was the way that it was. Let's see, there are many subjects in OpenStax Tutor. I'm mostly familiar with the college physics, but I'm also familiar with the university physics, which, as I understand, does not have Tutor right now. And
Right.
my wife uses the astronomy book, which doesn't have Tutor now. But I understand there are other books that have OpenStax Tutor. That's right, Kim. Sociology and chemistry.
Sociology and college biology.
Biology. Okay. Yes. All right. Let's see. So let's move on. So how does how does OpenStax Tutor help students to learn physics? Well, it helps them to engage in multiple different ways. So when I look at my class, I think of what are all the different ways that I can present this material to my students, and what are all the different ways that they can engage with this material. And this is one extra way, or one other way, that you can help your students to provide that engagement with the material. You know, any good course isn't just going to use one tool. I think this is as a tool that's in my tool belt that I can pull out and use with my students. They use the spaced practice questions. Now, these are questions that are spaced throughout the semester. So if you assign chapter 1, for example, then the student will continue to see questions from chapter 1 all throughout the semester. And students also get personalized questions. And personalized questions are, if a student doesn't do very well on a particular topic, say 1D kinematics, then they will continue to get more and more questions about 1D kinematics until they demonstrate through their work on OpenStax Tutor that they have mastered it, that they've learned the material. It helps students come to class prepared. We'll talk about reading assignments versus homework assignments, but I give my reading assignments as pre-lecture type assignments. They don't count a whole lot. I really just count them as extra credit, and we'll talk more about that in a bit, but it really helps the students to read the textbook before they come into class. So it helps them to come to class prepared, as well as gives them extra practice. And as I said, it's low cost, it's free, and the OpenStax Tutor is not free. I think it's $10 a semester for the students.
Right. The book will always be free, but the access to OpenStax Tutor is $10 per student.
Right. So not very much for your students. And it gives them opportunities to engage with the material. So how does it help me in my course? Well, when you go into OpenStax Tutor, and you really should go into it and just play around with it. You can log on and they'll verify that you're an instructor somewhere, and you can get an instructor account. And you'll find a question library of assessments. So these big banks of questions for all the different topics. It's broken down by chapter, and within each chapter is broken down by section in the textbook. So you can look at just the section on relative motion, for example, and look at all the questions in that. As I said, automatic space practice, these questions from chapter 1, chapter 2, they continue all the way throughout the semester, and personalized questions. When a student's not getting something, they keep getting questions on that. I'm going to show you some tools that we use to monitor student progress. I think that's one of the best things, because it helps you to take the heartbeat of your class and feel how they're actually doing. You know, is that heart beating strong and they're just getting the material and they're right along with you, or is it really weak and you just need to stop and perform a little, I don't know, CPR in your class? So it helps you to monitor your student progress. And it enables me to see where most of the class understands the concepts. You know, I like to think of teaching, and teaching physics especially, because it builds on itself as like, we're just going on this walk through the woods, and I want my students to see and take in everything in this walk. And sometimes students get left behind, and OpenStax Tutor helps me to determine when those students are left behind, and I can pause, or I can walk back and pick them up and bring them back up to where we are. So I don't want to lose any of my students, and OpenStax Tutor really helps me to figure out when those students are lost. Okay, so Kim, I think you're going to do this, right?
Yes. Yep. I wanted to start, just in case anybody on the webinar hasn't had a chance to set up their course. I'm going to walk you through that process really quickly. And you should see the screen. Chad, you see the screen, Discover a New Frontier in Education?
Yes, I see it.
Okay, perfect. So if you haven't already, I'm at the OpenStax Tutor website, which is accessible from openstax.org. And once you're here, you'll click access your course. And this will allow you to either log in if you have an account, or if you don't have an account yet, sign up for one and get verified as an instructor. If you haven't been verified as an instructor, it takes a couple of days at most to make sure that you're actually an instructor, because we don't want students to have access. But for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to go ahead and log in with my instructor account. And here I'm on my Courses page. So this shows me any courses I'm currently teaching. It gives me the option to create a course. And then we also have our preview courses, so you can take a peek at a class that has some analytics. I'm going to go ahead and click on create a course. And this is how, if you haven't already set up your course, I just want to show how easy it is. So first, it's going to lead you through this, basically this wizard. So I'm going to say I'm using the college physics textbook, selecting when I want to teach the course. So I'll say fall 2017. It's asking me, do you want to create a new course or copy a previous course? If you've taught before, you can copy a past course. If you haven't, it's going to say you can create a new course. You can name it. So Physics 101, I'm in Eastern Time. And now it's asking for the number of sections in the course. So we recommend, if you teach multiple sections of a course, go ahead and put them all under one course shell within OpenStax Tutor. And the benefit is that this lets you create, one assignment that can go out to both sections. You do have the option to have different due dates for the different sections, and students can register or enroll for the individual sections so that your gradebook has them separated the way you want it. So I'm going to say 2 sections, and then we ask you to estimate the number of students in your course. So if I'm teaching 2 sections of 30 each, I would say 60. And the reason why we ask this is OpenStax is funded by philanthropic organizations, and we really like to report back to them what our impact is, what the impact of their investment is. So this gives us an idea of how many students might be using the tool even before the semester started. And then that's it. So we're going to ask you that. You'll click continue. It'll build your course. It'll build your assignment library. And I'm going to go back to my courses and show you, you will end up on your course dashboard. So that's it. So I'll pass it back to Chad.
Okay, so you can see me there, Kim?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to show you how to set up some assignments, but before I do that, let me just say a couple of things. I'm going to show you how to set up a homework assignment and a reading assignment. And these are different in the way that the students see them, and they're different, I think, in the way that you should use them in your course. So first, I'm going to show you the reading assignment, and what I use the reading assignment for is as a pre-lecture activity. Say, for example, before we cover 1D kinematics, I have the students read the section on 1D kinematics. I assign that section to them. And then as they're completing the reading assignment, questions will come up that are based on that section. They're generally sort of comprehension type questions. And I include that in my course as extra credit. It's sort of low impact on their grade, maybe 10 points out of 600 for extra credit. And I give them some threshold, say 50%, 75% correct in order for them to get all that credit. So that's the reading assignment, and I'll show you that in just a moment. And then the second is a homework assignment. And the homework assignment is important for my students anyway, and you might choose to do this differently. But the homework assignment is I select questions out of the question bank, the question library for the students to complete. Now, in addition to those 5 or 6 or 7 questions that I assign, OpenStax Tutor will also assign 2 to, I think, 4 questions. There are certain questions that Tutor will assign to the students based on these ideas of space practice and personalized questions. Now, I set my open dates and my due dates for those assignments depending upon, are they a reading assignment or are they a homework assignment? The way I do this in my course is I'll give the students a week ahead of time to go through the reading assignment, and they are to complete it before we start that material. And then I'll open up the homework assignment, and while we're covering that material in class, say 1D kinematics, for example, they can be working on the homework assignment, which will be due at the time when we finish 1D kinematics. It doesn't always work out exactly as far as the timing, but I try to stick to that model where the reading assignments are pre-lecture, the homework assignments are post-lecture or post-class time. It's not all lecture, of course. So let's go, and I'm going to show you how to set up a reading assignment. So I have already logged in, and this is what I see when I log in with my instructor account. Actually, this is a fake account, but I'm gonna now click on my course. I'm not sociology or biology, I'm physics 101, and I can add an assignment. Now there are a couple ways that you can add reading assignments. You can click on this and it'll say add reading. Now let's just add a reading assignment. Let's say I want it due on the 31st. So I drag it over to the 31st. And I might say chapter 1, 1D kinematics. So I guess that would be chapter 2. But I can do my open date here, and I can do my due date here. I can also set the time. When you set the time, it'll choose a default time. I usually set this to midnight. And then see, I can set that as default. I can do it for all sections or for individual sections, and then I add the readings. So if I'm doing 1D kinematics, I can do chapter 2. I might do all of these, or I might just do a portion of them, depending upon what kind of chunks I want to give to my students. And that's going to be based on your class. Can they handle the whole chapter all at one time? Are they that responsible? Or maybe you just need to give them a few sections at a time. That's sort of up to you. Let's get out of this. Okay, so that's how I add the reading assignment. If I don't want to publish it just yet, I can save it as a draft. If I want to come back and edit it before I actually give it to the students, or I can go ahead and publish it. I'm going to cancel.
Chad, where did the questions come from for the reading assignment?
Oh, the reading assignment, you don't select the questions for the reading assignment. They are pulled from the question library. I'm going to show you the question library in just a bit. Actually, I can go and show it to you now. Let's see. So the question library.
So you can click on your name in the upper right-hand corner.
Oh yeah, here we go. So our question library is here, and I can just select the sections that I want. Here's chapter 2, and then just show questions. This is kind of important as you're looking at the question library, that you look at it closely and you determine which are the questions that you want your students to see. And if there are questions that you don't want your students to see, then you just exclude them. So say, for example, you look at this question, you say, well, this is a fine question, but I don't want my students to ever see that question. You can exclude it. You notice how it's sort of grayed out there. That means your students are never going to see it. So your reading questions, right here, I'll click on reading. These are the questions that the students will get for the reading assignments. Okay, and then I can look at all questions, or I can look at the practice questions that the students will also receive. I'm going to cancel that. We'll go back. I'm going to show you how now to add a homework assignment. So going back to my dashboard here, my calendar, I can add a reading or a homework. Remember last time I just dragged it over? This time I'm going to go to the day that I want it. I'm going to click on the plus sign. I can do it here as well. You can add other things like external assignments, like if you have an external link that you want to do or an event, but I'm going to add the homework assignment right now. Let's call this chapter 1 homework assignment, and we'll do kinematics again. And then I can choose whether I want the feedback to go only after the student answers, or instantly after the student answers the question, or only after the due date passes. Always choose that only after the due date passes. And then I can select my problems. And let's just select a couple of these. And then I can go down and show the problems. And then I'm going to select problems for this homework assignment. Now remember I told you that Tutor assign certain questions based on this idea of space, practice, and personalized questions. You can increase this or decrease this. I think the minimum is 2. I'll put it down to 2. And then as I add questions, like say for example when I add this question, notice that the total number of problems includes my selection plus the selections from Tutor. Okay, I can go through and look at other questions and add ones that I want to. If I want to look at a certain question, and look at the details for that question, notice that it gives things like the Bloom's taxonomy number, the depth of knowledge, the length, and it helps you to gauge how difficult this question is. You can also preview feedback after the students answer the question or after the due date is passed, whatever you selected, they'll get this feedback. And often the feedback is fairly detailed and it will explain why the wrong answers are wrong and why the correct answers are correct and give you a solution for that, or give the student a solution for that. So you can go through and select the questions that you want for the homework assignment. All right, let's see, I'm gonna cancel out of this. And let's talk a little bit about best practices on setting up reading assignments, setting up homework assignments, and how you use those in your class. So, of course, you want to provide a variety of difficulty levels. Those reading assignment questions will be a little easier, but your homework assignment questions, you can pick from a whole range of difficulty levels. And I like to provide them that are challenging, but not impossible. You want to balance the frequency of your assignments. So actually, I like to have them fairly frequently. I might have 1 or 2 per chapter in the class, maybe 1 reading assignment, and depending on the length of the chapter, maybe 1 or 2 homework assignments. I like to pick out a couple questions from the assignments, from the homework assignments, and put them on an exam. I'm not sure that I said this, but let me say it. The reading assignments count as extra credit, but my homework assignments, they're very important to the student's grade. I make them count as a whole exam. So in my class, I have 4 exams that are 100 points each, 150 points for a final, and then I have 50 points for class participation. They use clickers in class. And so the OpenStax Tutor counts as a 5th exam. So I have, what's that, 400, 550, 700 points total, and the Tutor homework assignment counts as 100 points out of that. Now, that gives them a lot of motivation to do well, and typically they do well. They make on average about 80% on those homework assignments. On their exams, they're making on average about 75% is the median, typically for an exam in my class. But on the homework assignments, they're pulling about 80%. You should expect that. They're working together, they're using outside resources, they're using the textbook, so that's okay. Yeah, so I also like to pull out a couple of questions before the assignments and put them on the exam, and just tell the students, hey, pay attention to these OpenStax Tutor homework assignments, because you'll see some of these questions, at least in a very similar way, on your exam, the in-class exam. I also like to create the small, easy assignment, either as a homework assignment or the reading assignment prior to covering a unit in class. That just helps you to sort of assess how the students are doing before you actually get into the material.
Yeah, just to add something quick, I really like these best practices that Chad uses in his class because, one, your goal as an instructor is to sort of convince the students why you think that this is beneficial. And when you take questions out of OpenStax Tutor and put them on the assignments, you're saying, look, I'm not giving you these as busy work. You're going to see questions like these on your exam. And then also the frequent assignments and having assignments that are before and after creates an expectation. I'm going to have to keep doing these assignments so they know to keep coming back to OpenStax Tutor. They know they have things to do there. So I think it's a great point.
Absolutely. You have to be consistent with your students and that you're consistently giving them assignments as you move through the semester at an expected rate. If you go several weeks without giving anything, the student's just going to forget about it. And when you actually do start giving them again, they're not going to respond very well. Okay. As I said, you want to edit your question library in advance. This is fairly important, not just to look for questions that you might not cover in the class, but also to look at questions that, you know, maybe they're just sort of not exactly how you would word a question or how you would present a question, so that the students aren't thrown off just by formatting. So just review the questions, look through them, and then remove those that you don't like. The nice thing is that once you do it once, it's done forever. So those question libraries will carry on into your courses in the future. That's right, Kim?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, good. All right, let's see. You can also monitor student progress and address your misconceptions. I'm going to show you this on OpenStax Tutor. Let me see if this is, oh, this is coming up next. So let me just talk about it now. As I said, one of the great things about OpenStax Tutor is that you can assess where your students are. You can take that heartbeat of your class and see how they're doing on particular topics. You should also tell your students that you're looking at these, that you're looking at this data, and maybe even pulling out questions that the students aren't doing very well on and addressing those in class. That way the students know that what you're doing in class is connected to what they're doing outside of class. Helps them to see sort of the big picture on how they're integrating all this information into their head. Spend time in class dealing with their problems, which you'll be able to determine from the metrics that you see on OpenStax. So let me show you, for example, on this mock setup that we have, some questions. Let's look at this homework assignment. I'm going to look at this homework assignment, and first, if I just click on it, I get this nice snapshot of how the students are doing. Now, there are only a couple students in this mock class, so but in your class, you would see your bars here, and they would be either green or red. And if it's mostly green, then that's good, and you can move on. But for example, physical units and quantities here is only 50%. So you'll certainly want to go back and look at that material in your class. It's kind of a nice thing to look at just before you go to class every day. Look at your metrics and see how the students are doing overall. Now you can also look at the metrics in a more detailed way. So here's an assignment that was given, a homework assignment. You see here's a question here, Newton's laws, and I can see how the students answered. 2 students gave C as the right answer, and I can also see their responses. So Eliza and Peggy Hamilton, they both had to type in answers before they actually saw the multiple choices that were available to them. Eliza typed this, Peggy typed this, so you can go back and look at those students' responses for these individual questions. Now, OpenStax Tutor doesn't grade these typed responses. Okay, the students do have to put them in before they see the multiple choice answers for some or maybe even many questions, but OpenStax Tutor doesn't grade those questions. The students will eventually figure out that they can just type some random letters. And a good way to circumvent that is to say, hey, Eliza Hamilton, I saw that you were just putting in junk for your free response on question number 1 on the homework assignment. That's not really achieving what we want to achieve. So I want you to really put some thought into it. Just pull them aside. You're going to find that it's not a lot of students, but some of the students will do that. And just talking to them will be fine. So you can go down and see who put what answers and which answers were correct or not. You can also, let's see, if I go back to my dashboard, I can also look at my student scores here, and I use this when I'm actually using the grades. So again, not a real class, but you would see how students are doing overall as a percentage, and then you also see how students are doing on the homework and the various reading assignments. You can display it as a percentage, or you can also display it as a raw number, like this student got 0 of 7 questions. You can also export this as an Excel spreadsheet, and that's what I do. It's really easy to open up that Excel spreadsheet and just copy over the numbers that you want into your own grade book, and then upload that to your Moodle or your Blackboard or whatever your LMS is. So really nice way to assess your students, either just by this snapshot, by looking at the individual questions, are actually looking at the raw numbers, the percentages or the raw numbers that the student, how they've performed on the homework and the reading assignments. So that's how we review our metrics. So setting up students for success, we're going to talk a little bit about the best practices, just some hints and some tips on how to use this. Again, OpenStax Tutor, it's not the only thing that you use in your class. You should be using many different avenues through exams and through in-class questions and group work and just different ways of engaging the students with the material. But it is a valuable tool to do that, to help engage those students, to help give them extra practice and give you a different way to assess those students. As I said, you should get them invested. And students, I would love for them to just say, gosh, I just want to learn physics. No, but you know that students, they're really grade driven. And so you need to make it part of their grade. They might not know what's good for them. It's sort of like making, your kid eat their broccoli. So get your students invested by making it part of their grade. I make homework assignments counts as an exam. Don't be shocked. They're not going to have 100% exam grade on that, but they'll have a better exam grade than they would, say, on their in-class exams. And I make the reading assignments count as extra credit. Not a whole lot of extra credit, maybe 10 points out of 600 or 700. So just a couple percentage points. You also want to post your enrollment materials in your LMS. I've been using it for 3 semesters and I've had very few issues. In fact, this semester I've had no issues with getting students enrolled. You will get an enrollment link that is specific to that particular section and you give it to your students. I post it on the top of Moodle and say, hey, you guys need to go to Tutor and then enroll. And then I always give them the quick start guide or the getting started guide. I think you can download it on the OpenStax Tutor site. Give that to them. It's really simple. It shows them all the steps. It's a 1-page document. Shows them how to enroll into the class. You can use your analytics, those metrics that I showed you, whether they're color coded or whether they're individual questions or they're actual numbers, to determine where your class is, if anybody's been left behind. And give context for how it will improve your student performance. Give context. Tell the students, hey, it took me lots and lots of practice to really learn how to do this. And you're going to need the same. You're going to need lots and lots and lots of practice. And this is a way that I'm providing that practice to you. Also give them context about how physics, the study of physics, fits into their particular fields, whether they're marine biologists or microbiologists or doctors. Let them know that, hey, you're going to need to know this. If nothing else, you're going to need it for the MCAT, but you're also going to need it in medical school, and you're going to need it as you move into these various careers. So be very careful about giving them context, because if they don't get the context, then they're not really going to be invested. Okay, so I'll answer your questions later when we get to the end here, I think, but I think Kim is going to show you the enrollment link.
Right.
Your LMS.
Yep. Okay. Show my screen. Okay, so Chad, you should see the OpenStax Tutor website.
Got it,
on
yeah.
The screen. All right, so let me go back. I'm at my courses page, and this shows all the courses I have. I'm going to click on the course I want to get students enrolled in. From here, I'll click on my name, and I'm going to go to the course settings and roster page. And here you see that I've already set up 2 sections in this course. So each section has its own unique enrollment link. So if you teach like a Monday, Wednesday, and a Thursday, Friday, and you want to make sure people enroll, James is enrolled in Monday, Wednesday, but John is enrolled in Tuesday, Thursday, you'll copy this link and share it with your students. Chad recommends putting it in the LMS at the top of Moodle. You could email it. Just make sure that they have this link. And then once they have this link, we also recommend sharing our Getting Started guide that Chad talked about. This is a PDF document that kind of walks them through the enrollment process step by step. They don't have, the process will guide them through the enrollment link, but if you want to give them extra instructions, we recommend just making this available. And that's really it. So once they're in the course, they will show up in the roster, and they'll have immediate access to any assignments that you've published for them. So with that, I think we will go ahead and move over to the question and answer portion. So if you have questions, please add them to the GoToMeeting Q&A section, and then we will get to those as you post them. Okay. I see a question about skipping over. Are you able to skip over entire chapters or sections? And the answer to that is yes. So the way that OpenStax Tutor works, when you assign a reading or homework, let's say for chapter 2, let's say you decide not to ever assign chapter 2.5 because you don't cover that in your class, OpenStax Tutor will never pull in questions from 2.5, either in space practice questions or in personalized questions. So we kind of follow your lead. If you assign a chapter in a section, we say, okay, that's a key. We can start giving students space practice and personalized questions from that section because you, the instructor, have said it's important. And one important thing to note is that in the question library, Chad talked earlier about excluding questions. You do not have to go through and exclude all the questions in 2.5 if you're not assigning that. Just leave it alone, and we will never assign them because you're not assigning any homework or reading from 2.5. Right. There's a question about whether the student dashboard looks different than the instructor dashboard, and is the student view different from the instructor view? That's a good question. Let me share my screen. Okay, so you should see the OpenStax Tutor screen now. So I'm going to go into a course. I'm signed in as the instructor, so I see this calendar view. The first thing I want to do is point you to this link at the top, Student Preview Videos. If I click this, you will be able to see, it's just I think they're 20 or 30-second videos that kind of give you a tour of what the student sees, because we recognize that you as the instructor are curious about what your students are seeing. So this gives a walkthrough of what's on the dashboard. You can see probably from this, I don't want to play the video, but you can see from this mock-up, they actually don't see the calendar. They see a more streamlined list of assignments that are coming up, because we really want to keep them focused on what's coming up, and then also be able to show their progress. So I've started this, I haven't started this, this is how many I got correct, and the due date. And then there are also 2 videos of a student, walking through a reading assignment and a homework assignment. So I would definitely recommend you check these out. The reading assignment will show you that when you select, let's say you assign, again, 2.1, 2.2, that is stepping the student through the book content and then adding in these extra space practice and personalized questions to keep them engaged in the reading. As Chad said, they're comprehension questions, they're conceptual questions, they're recall questions. They're not math or quantitative based questions, because we want to keep them focused on the reading and make sure that they can demonstrate some engagement with the material before they get into the more complicated math quantitative questions. And for the homework questions, you'll see there's some examples of those 2-step questions that Chad talked about, where first they're shown the question stem and then they're asked to provide a free response answer. And the rationale behind that is based on cognitive science literature, which shows that students who are, or really any learner who is asked to retrieve knowledge from memory, is more likely to lead to long-term retention than if they're just recognizing the answer in a list. So we're trying to avoid them working backwards from the multiple choice options and really kind of thinking about it before they see those. Okay. Let's see what else we have. Okay. We have a question about how readings differ from homeworks and how many space practice and personalized questions to expect in a reading versus a homework. So Chad talked about in homeworks, you, the instructor, choose your questions that you want, and then you have the option to say OpenStax Tutor can add between 2 and 4 personalized questions. In the readings, the rule of thumb is that students will get 3 questions per section that are space practice or personalized, and then at the end of the entire reading, they'll get 3 more personalized questions. So they are getting, everybody is getting the same number of questions for a given reading, but people will be getting different questions because it's based on what that student has done in the past. And if student A has kind of demonstrated some understanding of 2.1, for example, they're probably not going to get questions about that. They'll get questions from another section that they maybe didn't do so well on. So while the assignment length will be the same for everybody, they'll be getting different questions. Okay. What else do we have? Okay, do students see all the questions in the library or just the one assigned on homework? I'm asking this, as you said, we can eliminate a few. So the answer is that they will see, for the homework, they'll see the questions that you choose specifically. And then between 2 and 4 questions from the library for that section, or for the sections that were covered in the assignment. They're not going to get all the questions. They might, I guess, they could get all the questions over the course of an entire semester, but they wouldn't get them all within one assignment. Chad, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think they would get all of them even over a whole semester. I could be wrong, but yeah,
it depends on how many questions are in a given section. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, feel free to follow up. But yes, you can exclude questions from the question library. And like Chad said, he recommends doing that if you're not covering a particular question, or if you don't like the question, the way that it's posed, or feel that it will conflict with how you present the material in your course. And then as Chad experienced, especially in the pilot period, we had questions that had errata, which means that it was incorrect in some way. So if you come across some of those questions, which I'm hoping you won't do too many of, because Chad and our other physics pilot faculty rooted out some that we've addressed. But if you find some, we encourage you to go ahead and exclude it. And you can also, if you like, report it as errata. So that will send it back to our editorial team, and we'll send it back to subject matter experts to fix those questions. All right. The next question, Chad, maybe you can take this one. Can you edit assignments after the assignment has been published?
No, when you publish an assignment, you can no longer edit it, because students have already started that, presumably, or they could have started it. So the answer is no. Once you publish an assignment, you cannot edit it.
So you do have, your option though is to delete the assignment. If you made a huge mistake and you added in some questions that you didn't mean to, you could go ahead and delete it, and then that would withdraw it from all the students, and you could redo it. So that's the option that you have for editing after the fact. And then I'll add another point. If, let's say that you create a homework and then you go in and look at the question library after you've created it, and you say, oh, I really wanted to exclude this question from being assigned as a personalized question, you can go ahead and exclude it. It could still be used in that assignment because you've just provided it, but it will be excluded from future space practice and personalized questions. Okay. All right, I'll wait just a couple of minutes to see if anyone else has questions.
Yeah, and if you do have questions and you want to just shoot me an email, you can just look for me, Chad Young. I'm at Nicholls State. If you Google that, you'll find my webpage and email and phone number and all that. So if you have any problems, I really want to see people make use of this product. It's really a great product for your students.
Thanks, Chad. And I'll add to that, if you think of, so Chad's a great resource, especially for questions about best practices as an instructor. If you need help with something technical, like, you're not able to reset your password for some reason or something like that, you can contact our support directly. As the instructor, let me show my screen again. As the instructor in your course, you have the option to chat with support. So I've just clicked this help option. You can chat with support. We also have a knowledge base. And this is probably the quickest way, especially if chat is offline. Chat support is offline.
Oh, chat is
offline. Be the case at 3 a.m. You can search your question in our knowledge base and find things, and then you can also always email us if you need more than just chat. So we are here to help you. We're here to help your students as well. And me see if there are any more questions before we wrap up. Are you going to talk about linking to Canvas? So right now, we do not support direct LMS integration with Canvas. We are working on that now and planning to make announcements about when those features will be rolled out in the future. So for now, for this semester, your options are to, let me share my screen again. So sharing that enrollment link, you can obviously paste that in Canvas or whatever LMS you're using, and students will have one place to find it. When you are ready to export scores, as Chad showed, you'll be able to export, it's loading, you'll be able to export an Excel document with all the students who have enrolled in the class and how they did on each assignment. And Chad, I think you said you just, how often are you exporting scores in a typical semester?
I do it every time they have an assignment. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. No, I do it every time I upload an exam grade. So about 4 times a semester.
4 times a semester. And about how long is it taking you to do that? Like,
oh, for this part, maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes. It's not long.
Okay. Yeah, so I know people want the LMS integration option. The short answer is we're working on it, and we hope to be making announcements soon about that. Okay, let's see. And if you have any other specific questions or requests, especially about LMS integration, you can send those to me as the product manager. I'm working on that feature now. So taking your comments are helpful right now. So if you have anything specific, please feel free to reach out, and I will paste the email that you can use, and this will get onto me. I'm pasting this into the chat of the GoToMeeting. You can contact us after this webinar by emailing communications@openstax.org or our support team at support@openstax.org. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap up today. Chad, thank you so much for your time today. Enjoy the webinar as always, and thank you so much for those of you who joined the webinar. I hope you found it useful. We will be posting a video or a recording of this webinar on our website, so you can share this with other faculty or you can review it again later as you like. Thanks so much, Chad.
All right, you have a great day.
Have a great afternoon, everyone.